Hey guys, Hikari here, and this was a very heavy chapter. At the beginning of the chapter, we're kind of led to believe that the Wizard King is actually the enemy, and we see that a lot of the people are talking about that, basically saying that he was the enemy the whole time, and that, how can it be? I thought that he was saved our lives back then, and everybody's just very confused about it, and they're saying that if it's really true, then what's going to happen to the country right now with him being our enemy, basically? We see that Yuno's walking up to all the grouped up captains, and it seems that they're having a captain's meeting with a lot of the members of the Black Bulls along with some of the Golden Dawn members, and Yuno is going to be present here. And we see that they're giving basically a report to everybody, and they're saying that that's the end of the report. And after that, we see that Sekre, Noelle, and Mimosa have some very sad faces. You see that they are not taking the news about Asta very well, and that actually leads us into this next part of the chapter where they talk about the situation revolving around Asta and what he possibly could be going through right now. Rill then breaks the silence by saying that I see his celebration turned into a wake, trying to be funny, but it's obviously a nervous laughter, a nervous joke, and he basically follows it up by saying that he can't even really believe that this is going on right now. He then mentions the fact that Asta might have died, and we see that Yami is looking very angry. It's a sad face, but you can see that he's really angry about the way the situation turned out. And we see that he's calling to Noct. Noct then appears, and he instantly tells them that he can really slip into the shadows of any person that he so chooses. And he says that right now he can't enter Asta's shadow, which means that he's either in another dimension, in another continent, or he's possibly deceased, and everybody reacts to this very badly. We see that Noelle has a very bad looking face, and it's really sad seeing her in this state since she still hasn't really been able to tell Asta how she feels, and there's the potential that Asta's passed away. So I think that if she does meet up with Asta again, she's probably just going to just spill the beans and just let it out and finally tell him, so that another situation like this doesn't happen and that she doesn't feel so regretful about the situation. Fuegoleon then follows up with the situation, basically confirming that right now it seems that Lucius is going to be their enemy moving forward, and Jack kind of responds to the situation by saying that he can't even believe the fact that he actually has two souls in one body, very similar to the situation that was going on with William in the earlier arcs of the series. So he's putting the connection together, the fact that they both have two souls in their body, and both the souls kind of want different things. Fuegoleon then again confirms the fact that if he's a Zogrites and he controls almost all of the devils in the underworld, it's going to be very difficult to really defeat them. And Rill even says it that they're going to be really out of their league if they're able to subjugate all of these supreme devils, most of the high ranking devils, literally everybody in the underworld, and have them fight for them. The being that can do that is going to be not normal, and they're not really going to be able to take it down easily. Yuno then actually starts to speak, and he says that the supreme devil that had watched on the sidelines during the fight with Lucifero, and he's talking about Adramelech, he says that he actually has an army of high ranking devils, and that it's clearly a division, showing that they actually have all of the devils kind of in different divisions, platoons. They're having them kind of set up in like a military style to fight against all of the kingdoms in all of the world really at this point. Yuno then says that there's a possibility that there was a tear to the underworld made, and that's how they're getting all of these devils back to the surface of the earth or onto the world. They then talk about the fact that Lucius's innate magic is so incomprehensible and so powerful, and we see that Fuegoleon actually mentions the fact that using said magic, he was literally able to kind of take Lily, or Sister Lily's soul, and change it into something else while also giving her the power of a devil. So it's a very scary type of magic, and all of the magic together that he has is very insane and very perfect for the situation in the world that he's trying to create. And it's very scary seeing it from the perspective of the Clover Kingdom and the rest of the world, thinking, how are we going to defeat somebody like this? Kaiser then mentions the fact that they only even have 7 days to prepare for something like this, and we see that he's very concerned, and Yami still hasn't really said a word again in the chapter. We see that he's just standing in one spot looking very mad, and we see that he's went through a bunch of packs of cigarettes right now. We see that he's very stressed about the situation. We know that Yami usually always smokes, but we see that with the picture of the cigarettes here, it seems that he's very stressed about the situation, even more so than he probably has ever been in his life. Yuno actually then steps up and declares that he's going to have to do it, and we see that he has a flashback, I'm assuming to maybe a couple months, maybe even like right after the fight with Lucifero, but we see that he's talking to Asta, and Asta saying that, you know, you're always so far ahead of me, and that I'm going to play catch up, I'm going to get ahead of you instead, and that I'm going to surpass you, Yuno. And we see that in his mind to Yuno, it was always Asta that was all ahead of him, and we see that he looks back to the time where him and Asta got into the fight when they were kids, and they first kind of declared that they would both become strong, and he looks at a bunch of the other situations where it was Asta that kind of dealt the final blow to the enemies. It was Asta that, you know, really did the best in the fights, and we see that all this time he really does see Asta as somebody that was way ahead of him, somebody that he was trying to play catch up with. And he instantly says that if Asta's passed away and if he's not coming back, he's going to have to surpass Asta. I think it's kind of crazy how Yuno, I'm not saying that Yuno should discount the possibility that Asta has survived the attack, but I think it's kind of crazy how quickly he's very much accepted the fact that Asta might have actually passed away, and he's already kind of wanting to surpass him. I felt that Yuno would kind of be more sad the fact that Asta's kind of gone, and that he would kind of lament on that for a bit longer, and then eventually kind of be like, you know, I'm going to surpass him, I'm going to avenge him basically. But I think it was very fast for him to kind of just be like, hey, I guess, you know, Asta really is gone, so I'm just gonna have to surpass him. But maybe this is just kind of like how Yuno wants to honor Asta, instead of kind of sitting around thinking that, you know, man, you know, he's gone. Maybe in his mind it's better to just try to surpass what Asta was and try to avenge him in that way. But only time will really tell really how Yuno feels about the entire situation. And maybe if he does see that Asta's alive, we'll kind of see that maybe he was harboring some doubts, some emotions about Asta really being gone, and that he'll kind of let them all flow out whenever he does see Asta. But we'll have to see what happens in the future when they do meet up. Adramelech is now talking to Lucius, and he's basically telling him that in just a year, Yuno has become so strong to the point that he's defeating a bunch of different high-ranking devils in the blink of an eye without really even putting in that much effort into the attacks. Lucius then tells him that in all his tens of thousands of predictions, there's only really one future where they have the upper hand, and he says the key to that future is Yuno, and he lists off all of the unique characteristics of Yuno. The fact that Yuno is being born with 2 grimoires, a 4-leaf clover and a spade grimoire, and that he's the son of the elven chief. He was the reincarnation of him, and that's where his wind magic kind of comes from, and the fact that he's the heir to the spade kingdom. So all of these things make Yuno a big threat to the world that Lucius is trying to create. And it seems that Yuno is going to be his next target, considering that he says, Yuno, for the sake of the world peace, I'm going to have to crush you. So it seems like he's going to go after Yuno the same way he did to Asta. And this would be the worst case scenario, because if Asta and Yuno are unable to fight against him, it really does seem like all hope in that world is going to be lost. We then see the parallel to this, which is Yuno saying that, Lucius, I'm going to have to defeat you and become Wizard King. And we see that Yuno's very determined. He looks very serious about what he just said, and he's going to try to get that future where he defeats them, you know, into reality. And we see that at the end of the chapter, Asta isn't actually dead. We see that he's on the beaches of some random place that we don't know, and his grimoire is still right next to him, and he's washed up onto the shore. And he seems that he's maybe still unconscious, maybe still passed out, or maybe just super tired. But it seems that somebody has found him, and the person says, oh, there you are, and that's where the chapter ends. And I want to say that I think maybe this person is actually from the land of the rising sun, where Yami comes from. And I kind of mentioned that in my last video, how it would be kind of cool if that was the deal with him, and that Asta is going to have to train in that land. And I do think it's very cool that the sun is actually behind the dude that found Asta, so maybe this is them kind of alluding to that. And a lot of people have kind of shown parallels to this versus the time where Noct found Asta and the moon was behind him, and this both happened after Asta kind of got defeated or felt that he was very weak or inferior to something. These people kind of show up and they're going to make him even stronger. So I'm wondering what Asta is going to learn from this person. And I also think it's very important the fact that we have to consider that Sister Lily actually didn't end his life, and that she actually just transported him to another place. And I think Lucius doesn't even know that he got transported to this place. So I think it's very important the fact that Sister Lily somewhere in her mind was still herself, and that she didn't actually kill Asta, she actually just sent him somewhere different. So I think we all have to consider the fact that she was able to kind of resist his powers, maybe even a little bit, so that's not to end Asta's life. and that's actually where the chapter ends. So I think it was a very good chapter, and I really want to see what ends up with Asta being on the beaches of this random place, and I want to know what this person's gonna kind of do with them. But definitely let me know what you guys thought of the chapter in the comment section. Also, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe, as it really does help me out, and I appreciate each and every person that takes the time to watch the videos and subscribe. Also, follow my socials, follow my TikTok and my Twitter, and with that being said, I'm out. Peace.